This is a model of one of these houses with the thatch taken off. And you would have seen this in these settlements. Every year they would choose 2 or 3 of the houses, the people would move out of them, and they would re-thatch them. And they used marram grass here from the dunes, which is very light kind of grass but very durable. They didn't actually use thatch like you would see elsewhere from rushes and so on. The walls were actually very thick. This is actually a little bit on the thin side, and they were made of peat and turf. And the only stone in them was along the bottom. And originally they would lay out that shape of the house and then rebuild the walls every 5 years. And they were very labour intensive, these houses, but they were enormously eco-friendly, which nowadays suddenly makes them seem relevant. These walls would absorb infrared radiation from the sun, even on a cold, wet, drizzly day. That kind of radiation, we can't see it, but it comes through the clouds, and turf, peat also, will absorb that, and at night that's re-emitted as heat. So built into the design of these houses was night storage system. And over again now we've discovered that everything that they did in their traditional way of making these houses was exactly the right thing to do. Certainly with the knowledge we have now of the way we've polluted the planet through doing things in other ways. And the floor was made of clay, and you actually went down inside the house, and they would take a flock of sheep, and they would put the clay down, white clay, about that depth, and leave the sheep in there for a day or 2, let them out again, and they trampled the clay down, and it was absolutely smooth. And the peat fire sat on a large slab, generally in the middle, somewhere there's a box bed, it would have been in the middle of that section where the humans went left and the cattle went right through the same door. And the thing about peat is it's incredibly hot, but you could pick up a peat in one end of it and not be burnt. If you blow on it, it will glow. If you blow on it a lot, if it's really good peat, you could get about 1,000 degrees centigrade. You could actually using it for smelting iron and things like that, peat charcoal. However, you have a pile of that smouldering away, and again it is sending out dark radiation, infrared. You can feel it. You get the same off a black stove, a Rayburn, a classic black iron stove, and that heat is going into that clay, which dries it out, becomes warm, and they had underfloor heating. We think we know what we're doing. They build houses with stone walls like you see in Braveheart, like they thought, it must be like a dry stone dike. If you have a hurricane force wind with a dry stone, the water is pumped through the spaces between the stone, and they would be sitting with water coming in straight on them. That's another story. So the thing is that they also recycled, as I mentioned earlier on actually, they recycled the thatch. It became impregnated with the black soot, the potash from the peat fire. They would refuse to have a chimney because that wasted it. Again, they mocked them, but they would take that thatch impregnated with that soot. They would mix it with the manure from the byre. They made compost, and they put it on their fields.
So it's a way for the future almost.
They're pointing how to recycle, how to be biodegradable.
Yeah.
Everything they were doing right, except it's taken us 200 years to actually understand it. When the clearances happened, they had no understanding of ecology. They had no understanding of market research. Will it be a good idea to put thousands of sheep out there? Will this be sustainable? Sustainable? No. Within 25 years, the sheep had eaten all the good grass. They wrecked the ecology of this area, and the same people who actually instigated the factors who brought the sheep in, it wasn't their idea, but it was an idea that was out there, and made a lot of money out of it, were saying, well, look at that, it's just a wilderness. Could never support anything.
Can you just quickly quickly describe the box bed, because there is a box bed in the museum?
Absolutely.
And why?
Yeah. There is a little box bed there, and a longer seat, like a bench, and lots of little creepy stools. And where the fire was is just obviously it's not glowing because it's a pile of peat. And they sat underneath the smoke. And you don't find large seats in a Blackhouse because this valuable soot was above their heads, and they sat telling stories and so on, looking at the glow in the fire. The box bed, and the style of them actually starts in continental Europe in, say, about the 15th century, and you could get them in French farmhouses, spreads up to the Highlands in the 18th century, although they had similar things before. And it's a completely self-enclosed, like a little house within the Blackhouse. And the hens would perch on the top of it and so on. But because the thatch would only last so long, obviously towards the end of its life, a little bit of rain would come through if you had very, very heavy rain. So you had a little roof on your bed, and that kept you warm and cosy in there. Grass. They just laid it on there, and you had to have a net over it, and you had stones hanging from it, and you see old photographs of black houses in the Hebrides. It's the same thing, slightly different design, because they didn't have so much turf, and not so long as these. This is a cutaway, of course. They didn't really have a sun parlour like that in the roof. But the main thing about these houses, the Sutherland Longhouse, is that they take that design to North America. And they refused to, in 1913, Patrick Seller asked the people of Kildonan to go up to Armadale up here, not Armadale West or East Lothian. And they say, get lost, Mr. Seller, we are going to go to the Red River Valley with Lord Selkirk, and to do that you had to have at least £300 or £400, which is like the equivalent of £3,000 now, or more. They went to Orkney and they sailed off with Lord Selkirk, and they had to have money so that they wouldn't starve when they got there. So they were making that money from cattle dealing, bringing money home as well. So the thing is that, where does one, you know?
So this is actually the box bed?
So this is an actual box bed from the period, maybe just after the actual clearances, round about the time of the clearances. It's actually made of an unusual kind of wood. It's made of Baltic pine. Baltic pine, obviously they're trading with that part on the other side of the North Sea, not that very far away. And it's totally waterproof. This bed could stand in 4 inches of water for 100 years and it will never rot. Also, it's so heavy it doesn't float. So they're trading backwards and forwards. They're actually trading horses from here. They had semi-wild horses out there in the landscape with the Baltic, Scandinavia, Eastern Europe, and they possibly paid for that by exporting horses from here.
Where did this bed actually come from? Did it come out of...
Too much, but because we just looked at one. And the whole way of life is in this thing. See? Now, the thing is that you bought these as a flat-back kit.
Flat-back?
This came as a flat... There's nothing new about flatbacks. They had a whole corrugated iron churches in the 1840s, which they took to Australia, and here and all came flatback kits. So they came like that, and they're put together with pegs, and you can see slots for pegs there. All of this furniture is held together with pegs. The man who brought it from near Ben Hope, around that part he lived, and he was going to get married. He was in the army, got some money, bought this bed to set up house, and he carried it on his back 45 or so miles across the rugged moorland, no roads as such. And the thing weighs about 300 weight. They were enormously fit, healthy people. Anyway, all around, this would be the heart of, this is where the adults slept. The children quite often just slept round the fire because it was nice and warm, and the actual clay was nice and warm. It was dry too. I explained about the roofs and how but what we actually say is every 3 years they ate their roof because they put it in manure out of it, compost out of it. But it has exactly as we have on that model.
Yeah.
There are so you can show the model, and they're just dangling down the net, and very roughly constructed. This is 1840s or something. This is after the clearances, and they were no use to make them out of stone, and you make them using mortar. It'll be shell mortar probably. And these guys, though, they're wearing. He's got a Second World War jacket. He might have been in the Lovat Scouts or something, right? That's the local regiment. They were commandos.
Right.
So he's wearing a battle dress jacket. He's got dungarees on. They're all wearing dungarees. Nobody really wore dungarees
Sorry, Elliot, you
before that.
confused me. You said 1840 is the picture, and that's the Second World War.
No, this is the style. Sorry.
Oh, the style, right.
Yeah. Sorry, beg your pardon.
Pictures in 1840.
I'm talking. I'm jumping so many. If 1840 was the clearances, and that's when they forced them to start building on an estate. That was an estate building. This is how you make them use massive stones, and they all became stonemasons because of this. You see, and you can go then to the Pittsburgh picture because they went to America with the skill of being stonemasons.